Let's see. It was a good middle-class life. We had a lovely home. Our whole families lived there. My father's brother and his family. My grandmother lived there. We lived on the middle floor. Let's see. I went to school. I started first grade. And those days in Germany, the public schools were taught by Catholic nuns. I had a lovely nun. I still remember her name. It was Sister Margaret. And I learned to read, and it was a good year. Second grade, I had a Nazi teacher. Second grade became a nightmare. My name is Inge Stanton. I was born in Germany. Lived there from 1930 when I was born to when I left, which was in 1939. I heard many a time, "Grandma, will you take us to Germany?" And this is the year 2016 that we are in Germany. I took my 6 grandchildren, or at least 5 of the 6, because they were the ones who really wanted to see where I came from.
I look at it as understanding where I came from, my roots. And I looked at this trip as wanting to hear from my mother what life was like and to see what her life was like here. And so I could see it from her point of view, from her mouth while she is still alive. It was very important to me, and I wanted to share it with my children.
It also shows that the Germans did not wipe out our family, that we continued on, that she had 2 children, and from her came 6 grandchildren, and that the Jews did survive in spite of Hitler wanting to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Another story, I was outside near the wall, the tower, which you will see, and all of a sudden I saw our car come by. We had a Mercedes at the time, and somebody else was driving the Mercedes. But how come? I ran home. "Daddy, Daddy, where's our car? I just saw someone drive off." My daddy ran around. The car was gone. The Nazis took it. That's all. Nothing to. You fuss too much, you lose your life. Goodbye car, goodbye house, goodbye business. My father was bright enough to know that we had to get out. It wasn't any one point. Well, Hitler came into power in 1933. By 1936, Jews knew this was not a place. Although they hoped that Hitler was a passing fancy and it would end, but it didn't. There was no life for Jews in Germany. Jews were nobodies. You know, the more I talk, I remember they just disappeared during the war. Concentration killed to have a Germany free of Jews. That's all. There were no Jews left. I'm going to the Jewish cemetery because I want to see which people they remember. There are no graves left, only those people who came back and put gravestones up, but there's a plaque to all the Jews that lived in Lichterfels, which was a small town, that were, what shall I say, killed off by the Germans, by Nazis. And I'm going there because I'm Jewish and I want to remember those people who were there, who I did know as a child, but it's just one of those things I have to do. An inner need to say I respect those people. They were my parents' friends, and I remember them.
But there was one plaque there that had the name of Bamberger, which was her mother's name. Did you see this, Mom?
No.
This is after they destroyed the cemetery and before they carted away the stone to use somewhere else.
This Oppenheimer was our family also.
We pulled up to her house and we got out and it was just incredible to be there. And she started explaining to us where the parking lot now used to be her garden, how they would go through the garden and eat the berries and go up to the friend's house. And I could just picture her playing with her friend and running through the yard and going up and cutting through somebody else's yard on the way back down the way they described. And what was unbelievable was that we rang the bell and we asked if we could just come in and look around. And the woman that answered the door let all 10 of us in the house and showed us around.
And her husband knew my mother. Their fathers used to do business together in the leather business.
In '39, when they had the Crystal Night, I remember it very, very clearly because it was a particular frightening time. The Nazis broke down the door, came into the house, destroyed whatever they could, every piece of glass, every dish was thrown through the windows. My mother had a beautiful rose garden. She was a rose person, and all our dishes and whatever that was breakable went through those windows and destroyed her rose garden. My sister and I went up into the 3rd floor where we had my grandmother's apartment, and we had a non-Jewish tenant in the other half because she didn't need the whole floor. And they were very gracious and kind. They took us in, and we hid up in the attic. I was up there I was the oldest at 9 at that point. I had lots of little cousins, and it was my job to keep them quiet and behaved. And when they went looking for us, the tenant said, "Oh, there's nobody here," and he wasn't Jewish. He was known to all the people there. And we came through it fine. But I still cringe anytime any glass gets broken. I hear all the glass in our house being thrown through the windows. Every window was broken, every piece of glass in the house and china, through the windows. Not open windows, through the windows. But you know something, you had to grow up quickly. And then the local men were all put into the local prison. A couple of them were sent to concentration camps, but I don't remember which ones. And after a few weeks, they were released and they came back. They weren't hurt, but what an experience. My mother, what shall I say, she was aghast and worried. So it was not, what shall I say, a time where you'd say, I want to live in this country. You were not wanted. We felt unwanted. We felt in danger. And we were fortunate enough to get out because my father had gotten a quota number and England was gracious enough to take us in. See, in my day when I saw that, it was a curse word, like a ghetto word, you know?
Hallo! Inge, herzlich willkommen in Richelfeld. Nach 22 Jahren einen kleinen Willkommensgruß. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Glinde,
Glinde?
Schulfreundin.
Ja, ein Großkind.
Ja, Enkeltochter.
Rachel.
Und das auch Enkeltochter. Vom Bild her.
They were also so eager to hear what my mother remembered from the temple because they weren't there, and she was able to show that this is where the women sat in temple and that this could be the mikveh.
The lady who was showing us around asked me questions, what I remembered. I tried very hard to give her facts and memories. Yes, I do feel it's important to tell people this is what happened to me. It's a personal story. Fortunately, it's not the worst of it because I was able to escape the Holocaust.
I don't think I could have imagined what it would feel like and what the way the German people have been crying and hugging my mother and how welcoming, how happy they are to have her back, how badly they feel about what happened and that she had to flee. And everyone we have met has been brought to tears. Every guide, and they've been hugging her, they've been talking to her. They are thrilled that she is here and brought her family back.
Anyway, my father was smart enough, bright enough, had enough foresight to say, I'm getting my family out. But the bad times came quicker than he thought. He had to flee the Nazis overnight. My father's brothers wife's family was packing. We got kind of lost in the packing, and Nazis came in, and I was very much aware that this was a big problem. My father had gotten a lot of fur coats for them because they figured they could sell the fur coats and have some money. But somebody, and I use the word loosely, ratted on them. I ran home, told my father, and I was only 9 years old. He got into the first train or whatever way he went to Frankfurt and flew to England immediately. When the Nazis came, his brother's family, he knew they were going to get after him because he supplied the furs. We were able to get out. Just the day before war broke out, I went to England. And I was grateful to England. I was very much aware that they were our saviors. And I still am more than I can possibly say appreciative to the British who were willing to take us in. And the United States at that time turned away the Jewish ships that had Jews on it. They wouldn't take in anybody. I felt as if I was a princess in England. The world was my oyster. And that I remember very, very clearly. Being outside, playing with new friends, and building sort of a grass throne and sitting on it, and I am a princess. I came to the United States April 19th, 1940, for the record. And then after a very short period, we moved to Queens. We had our own apartment, small apartment. My grandmother was with us, and we were happy. And then after a very short period, my father sat me down and said, I'm happy to tell you I can afford to let you go to college. You don't have to go to work. So that, at the time I thought my father was crazy. Of course I'm going to college. Of course he can continue to, to support me. He had been supporting me all these years. But looking back from an adult point of view to my father, this was a sentence of great importance because he had come back to the point where his daughter could go to college. Most of my life, I would not have come to Germany. Most of my life, I felt the Germans were less than human beings. What they did was terrible. I wanted nothing to do with them. I didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to be part of it. I have changed, I have mellowed with the years. I can accept Germany now. I don't think I changed until I was well into my 70s. But there's still a feeling that comes up. What am I doing here?
You know what it says?
Look, I'm alive. Hitler wanted to kill off every Jew that walked. Here I am with 6 grandchildren, 2 successful families. Just look at me. And I feel the Jewish people have come back, and I expect my family to be successful to make up for the Anne Franks who could not be successful, who might have been, and many like her. You try to kill me off like a bug. And I want to say, Hitler, you failed.